As human beings, I believe one of the most amazing gifts we possess is the power of our voice. Through our voice, we can inspire others through oration. We can lift people's spirits through song, and we can open hearts just by whispering, I love you. So the question is, have you found the power of your voice? Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion tip of the week. The power of voice. You know, my own work right now as a professional speaker, as well as a martial arts master instructor, I'm blessed all the time to be able to use my voice in a way that hopefully impacts others in a positive way. And then as a martial arts instructor, I've seen numerous examples of where people have literally found their power through what we call the ki up, the power yell in martial arts, or even being trained on how they can subdue an assailant by using the power of their own voice. But nothing has been as impactful for me as being able to see my own son find the power of his voice. Many of you out there know my son, Jason. You know, Jason was born a healthy little kid, but for most of his life, and particularly his younger years, he has struggled with finding the power of his voice. You see, he had, as an infant, developed a lot of ear infections. And what ended up happening in those ear infections is it began to stunt his hearing, which then also impacted his speech. So much so that when he was a young toddler, we had to teach him sign language in order to communicate because he was so frustrated because the sounds wouldn't come out. Well, as he moved into elementary school, he actually began to get his power of speech, and he was able to communicate well. But one of the things that was a lasting impact of those early years is he had developed a very, very strong stutter. And this was a disfluency that would literally impact him through his entire youth years, not only in elementary school, but into middle school, and then importantly into high school. And it was something I knew that troubled him terribly. And I'll tell you what, as a parent, there's probably no greater pain than seeing your own child not be able to communicate, to be stuck on words, and just wanting them to be able to express and not be able to. But that all changed in Jason's life right around when he was 17. He was training along with two of his fellow martial art classmates to test for his senior third-degree black belt. And all three of them were great athletes, and I had no doubt that they were going to be putting on a great performance at their martial art testing. But one of the requirements that they had for this test is they need to do an individual creative form, or kata, to music to demonstrate their skills. And as the test was getting closer, I was noticing that Jason wasn't practicing his form. Well, about 2 weeks before his test, he came up to me and he said, "Dad, can I talk to you for a moment?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "You know, I could develop this creative form, this creative kata," and he said, I'd probably do really well. He said, "But you know what really challenged me?" I said, "What?" He said, "If I gave a speech." Now, I still get chills when I think about that moment, because as a parent, I wanted nothing to do but protect him. I knew that being in front of all those people and possibly stuttering could be incredibly embarrassing for him. But as his martial arts instructor, I knew it was the exact thing that he needed to do. So a couple weeks later, it's the day of the test, and he and his fellow classmates are doing an amazing job. And now it's time for him to give his speech. And there's 300 people in the high school gym. And I remember nervously handing him the microphone, just praying that he'd be able to get through. And that's when it happened. He stood in front of all those people. He gave the most empowered and impassioned speech ever, and did it without a stutter. And the place went nuts. People stood on their feet, gave him a standing ovation. He leapt into my arms and gave me a hug. But that's just the starting point of the magic. You see, after that, most of Jason's stuttering almost vanished. He became now an instructor at our school, which he had avoided for years because he was afraid of embarrassment. And about 4 years after that, it really came to this wonderful conclusion as I was sitting in an auditorium at his college graduation, and he stood up after being selected by his fellow classmates and delivered the commencement speech for his class, once again, without a stutter. And now what Jason does, he has his own company called Stories to Light, and it's a photography and videography company. And his mission is that he wants to help people find their voice which he had trouble finding for so many years through his work. So those types of stories we probably all have in our lives. Those times in our lives when something shifts, something changes. And in this case, it was about someone who was willing to take the risk to find the power of their voice. So I have 3 things I want to share with you today and just leave with you. If you're sitting there going, man, I just don't know if it's time. I don't know if I have what it takes to really be powerful in my own voice. And I want you to consider these 3 things. Number 1 is the power of yes. Is when we say yes to challenges and when we say yes to the things that scare us, that's where magic begins to happen. It's on the other side of those things. It's like Emerson said, do the thing you fear and the death of fear is certain. So where do you have an opportunity to say yes to something that might take you out of your comfort zone? Maybe it's giving a speech, maybe it's having a conversation, but it's saying yes to the opportunities you have. Number 2 is having the power of your voice to say no. Many times we think that in order to offset disappointment that maybe we think others might have, is we say yes to things that don't fully align with our mission, vision, and values. But what I have come to understand is that sometimes saying no is one of the most profound things we can say. And I had a coach tell me years ago, he said, Chris, when your no's are strong, it makes your yeses even stronger. Because you're saying no to the things that aren't important to you, that you know won't move you ahead, and it gives you energy and focus and confidence to say yes to the things that do. And then finally, it's the ability to say, I'm here. You know, many people, many successful people say that the one common denominator to all their success was just showing up and saying, I'm here, and claiming their greatness, claiming their voice. So my question for you, my friends, is where do you have an opportunity to do that in your own lives? Where do you have an opportunity to say yes to the things that will take you forward? Where do you have an opportunity to say no to the things that won't? And where do you have an opportunity to stand in the power of your voice and say, I'm here? So that's your challenge over the next week. Take at least one instance where you're able to use the power of your voice to prepare yourself forward. And I can guarantee you, it can be the catalyst of something great. And by the way, if you're interested in learning more about that, just check the link below. I have a course coming up with my good friend and fellow professional speaker, JB Braden, that we call the Champion Speakers Academy. And it's a virtual one-day event. And what we do is we help people put together a talk where they can share their message so that they can get that message out, the power of their voice, as well as build their businesses. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the link below. And we'd love to have you join us. It's going to be on Friday, March 10th. From 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time. So there you have it, my friends. Where do you have an opportunity to lean into the power of your voice? Let's do it this week. This has been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching, and we'll see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.